Like Hannah mentioned, I'm Matt. I direct the Avatar and Catalog team. I'm Captain Rando on Roblox, and probably in real life. I've been with Roblox for just over a year, and in my former life, I was a tech director and creative director in the gaming industry on games like FIFA and The Sims, Overwatch, and God of War. So that is where I am coming from.
And I'm Stephen Joe. Can you click? There we go. I have two avatars because I wanted to. I've worked off and on for Roblox for about 10 years, worked for other studios in between there. But I started with creating simple hats and accessories, very much like we're planning on presenting with UGC, and creating avatars, which is also something we're going to be talking about here. So it seemed only appropriate for me to be here and wander on stage.
I like to call him Stefan. You can call him Stefan. He likes it, I think. He's hard to read. We know that Roblox is a really special place, and it has a really special community, including all of you, and it's very passionate, and we are as well, about Roblox and the platform. And I think everybody has a different thing that makes Roblox special to them. And what we're doing as we go forward is we're trying to grow and evolve the platform without leaving behind any of the things that people love, while adding things that the platform doesn't have that people wish that it did have. So today, like Steve and I are going to talk through a lot of what we're doing over the next couple of years, actually, to grow and to enable more creativity from the community. Our agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about overall, like what Avatar is about and what's driving us, new core tech that we're working on, a lot of R&D and a lot of kind of work in progress and sketchy videos. Steven's going to talk about the aesthetics and how we're evolving those, both from the tech side and from the creative side. We're going to talk a little bit about compatibility so people don't freak out about all the new changes. And then we're going to talk about UGC. So this is how we describe our vision internally. This is what motivates everything we do. The vision for avatars is that we want to have avatars that are personal and engaging no matter who you are. And what that breaks down into for us are our shorthand AAA quality characters and avatars, whether that's animation, rendering, behavior, control, all of it. We want infinite customization and personalization. Obviously, that's hyperbolic. It's not actually going to be mathematically infinite, but we like it to feel like it is and that you can be whoever you want to be. And there's limitless possibilities. We want seamless compatibility so that as we do all this crazy stuff, that it doesn't break all the games and that it's, that everything plays nice together. We want an accessible pipeline so that as many people as possible can create content for the platform. And we want a catalog that can deal with the millions of awesome things that get made. So, where are we headed? So this is Lola. So she's where we want to be. So
no. Everything is awesome, so it's cool.
Put it on speaker. Yeah. So she's where we want to be eventually. This is where we're headed. And we're working on all the tech that rolls up to make this possible. And I alluded to it earlier, but the goal is not for all of Roblox to turn into this. The goal is for us to grow Roblox so that it could support this as well. And if you like action figures or you like the current style or the classic style, none of that's going away. We may be able to make it look even better if we want to, but we're adding and extending this universe. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into this, and we're going to talk through this for the rest of the talk. These are the things that comprise Lola. So new PBR shaders, you heard that mentioned in Adam's keynote. Physically based rendering, new custom materials, fully skinned mesh parts, deformable meshes, and we'll get into that a little bit. A new type of skeleton based on bones that work together with parts, with our existing part system. Highly deformable bodies, eventually, and we'll show you some examples. Layered clothing and accessories, a completely new humanoid that's much easier to work with, and new character controller that's much more configurable. So Vince will be very happy.
I think we have fans.
So let's dig into the core tech a little bit. Stefan?
All right, it's Fen. So this is Lola, and we wanted to start with giving you a brief breakdown, taking her from concept to a game res model. This is using the PBR pipeline that has various maps, which we can click to the next one. And these maps are metalness, roughness, albedo, and normal map. These are used by the PBR, the physical-based renderer, to give the appearance of metal appearing more metal, leather appearing more leather, basically creating a more realistic looking appearance on the character while still being performant and able to be run on mobile.
And as Steven mentioned, like this can be used, I mean, it's grounded in reality, so it can be used to make things very realistic, but that isn't to imply that Roblox will suddenly all be realistic. Lola herself, in this example, she's not actually realistic, she's stylized, and we can get quite a bit of range, and Steven will show you some of that in a bit. So first piece of tech I want to get into a little bit. Again, this isn't an engineering talk, so I'm not going to start talking math. But as far as the capabilities and how this works with existing Roblox tech, hopefully you can make that clear. So we're introducing basically bones, concept of bones. If you've animated in Maya, Blender, anything like that, you're familiar with that. In this universe, bones can be children of other bones, or they can be children of parts. So you could build an entire skeleton, off of a root part. And just animate the skeleton, or you could mix and match them in whatever combinations make sense for what you're trying to do. The bone height, this is a detail, but bone hierarchy is defined through the workspace, which is not usually the case, and not the case with parts. Parts, we're not changing anything about the way parts work, but these new bones work slightly differently, in a little more sort of standard way, if you will. Mesh parts support optional skinning or weights. And I'll show you some examples there. But what this means is there's nothing new. There's no new parts, there's no new types, there's no new APIs. If you have a mesh that you've brought in from Maya, Blender, whatever, and it had weights and it was deformable, that will now be in the existing mesh parts, and the code will recognize that and just start deforming them. And if it's not there, it continues to act the way that it always did. Vertices in mesh parts can be assigned to, or can be weighted to, bones within the same part, bones in another part, everything, pretty much anything, really. And I'll show you a video here in a second. It gives you a little bit of an idea. And body pieces can be internally skinned. So even if you're still taking apart action figures and putting the limbs together, within a given piece, they can still be skinned, if that makes sense for what you're doing. And this is sort of falls out of everything else, is if you're making a whole character, whether it's for an avatar either that we're making or that we're making for UGC, or whether it's an NPC in your game, if you skin the entire thing together, it will be seamless then when you animate it and when it deforms. So even across the individual parts. So this is just a work in progress debug view for some of the stuff we're doing now. So this is showing the bone influences on the vertices in this version of Lola. So where you see that it's white, those vertices are weighted to a single bone, and where you see the shaded areas, those vertices are weighted to adjacent bones so that they skin seamlessly. And then here's a real quick example. I don't know, Stephen, if you want to chime in. The character on the left this is the same character. This is Lola made of 15 parts. On the left is the way she would appear right now on Roblox. This is in the engine. And on the right is her fully skinned.
And both of these models are the same model. The skinning just gives the appearance of smooth organic binding, while the other, it still has this other state, which is this rigid bound version that most of you are familiar with.
And we'll talk about it a little bit more in the compatibility section. But Steve mentioned this is the same character. So from your game's perspective, they're identical. Like same parts, same names, same everything else. So a more future-leaning thing that we're really just in the R&D stages with are a new way of thinking of avatars. So thinking about this alternate avatar representation as highly deformable, skinned bodies that I can stretch and pull. I can make you fat, skinny, fit, taller, whatever. And clothing that's layered on top of those bodies and on top of other clothing, and accessories that are layered on the same way. So that can include simple accessories like that have a single attachment point. It can also include more complex accessories that need to shape themselves to a more complicated body. And all of these things will be supported. So just to give you an example of what we're working with here, so in Adam's keynote, you saw something flash by really quick. There was sort of an animated version of this. You can imagine what we're trying to do is we want to be able to take a character like this, kind of an average human, be able to dress it up, author clothing, shirts, pants, coats, scarves, anything. And then we want to take that exact same piece of clothing and put it on a not IP infringing green character. And
his name is Bloke.
Yeah, exactly. Or put it on classic like blocky characters. Like it could go anything. See, he's not so incredible when he's naked, but so again, I can answer questions that we're not going to get into the crazy tech details of it, but to give you a rough idea, the techniques that we're looking at, which are pretty new and groundbreaking. I mean, I haven't seen these in any of the games I've worked on and in any other avatar systems. Basically, we need to have a way so that we can tell the shirt where the verts on the shirt belong on the body, regardless of what the body is. So we are currently looking at techniques where we have this mesh that is identical in topology that gets wrapped around whatever your body is. So it's the exact same, we call them a cage, so the exact same cage in all three of these cases, just that it's reshaped around the character. So the verts on this cage that would be on the wrist on the character on the left are the same verts that are on the wrist of the classic Roblox character. And what that does is then when you put the shirt on, the shirt says, where do I belong on this thing? It distorts itself and twists it, and then we end up getting something like this. So really early, and we're approaching this very seriously because this will be a core element of Roblox going forward. Next thing we want to get into is less visible, more developer-facing, and that is a complete re-architecture of the humanoid. So one of the things we hear constantly from developers is that the humanoid is just a pain in the butt. It's huge, it's slow, you can't really customize it. You always end up needing some piece of it, and you have to bring the whole thing along, or you have to rewrite everything yourself. So it's kind of a mess. It's a mess for us too. So it's being completely taken apart. Broken into individual components that will be packaged up using the package system. And so you can continue to get updates if you want them. You can take individual components, remove them or disable them, replace them with your own, and extend it using your own components. So you should be able to just completely take it apart, do whatever you want to do with it. And again, it's using the package system. So if you don't choose to fork the package entirely, you will get updates along with you're using that mechanism. So again, I won't go into crazy detail here, but just as you guys can look at the slides later too. This is the component breakdown, the rough architecture of the new humanoid. So each of these little boxes you hear on the right are individual components that you can again enable, disable, replace, whatever. They're all written in Lua and no longer opaque. The second aspect of this is the character controller, which previously was in C++. It was also very opaque. There wasn't very much you could do with it, unless you took it wholesale and wanted the exact behavior that it was giving you. So now, similarly, it's no longer opaque. It's implemented using a new generalized state machine. I'll show you a really early prototype of that in a second. And everything is written in Lua. The states and transitions can all be overridden, removed, disabled, whatever, similar to the humanoid. And the core functionality will be at parity with what's currently there. So when we initially release it, it will be to have all of this configurability, but to have it behaving exactly the way that it's currently behaving. That will be opt-in for sure. That's not something that's going to be forced on anybody at all. And then the hope is once we get this out there and we're getting feedback on it, is that we can also use it we can extend it to provide sort of jumping off points for different types of games to give people a leg up when they're just starting out. So we can extend it with mechanics for good 3D platforming, for third-person shooters, first-person shooters, driving games, anything, so that we can extend it so that out of the box you can grab the right pieces to get something propped up really, really quickly. So This, don't read too much into this. This is actually a Hack Week project, so I think everybody's probably familiar with that. Every holiday season at the end of the year at Roblox, we have a Hack Week where developers, internal developers, come up with projects, and we usually end up with 2 or 3 dozen different really sophisticated projects, and I'd say probably a third of them end up making it actually into Roblox. This was the Hack Week project from the Avatar team. This last holiday, which was basically a full Lua-driven state machine with a graphical editor for state machines. It's generalized, so you can use it for anything. In this particular case, we're using it to prototype a new character controller. So what you're seeing here is all of the jump, fall, swim, everything else represented in these Lua-based states, and this is the debugger. Steven.
Do you mind if I take that? Sweet. I've got the power now. So one of the things we talked about with the improvements we're planning on making to the avatar was trying to strive for realism, but that isn't our only goal here. One of the biggest challenges we face and our players face is jumping into different games and how their avatar approaches jumping to those different games. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we're going to broaden the visual range of the characters and working off of a core functional library and then extending it to give different styles. This is more or less from the avatar perspective, but I wanted to give some background behind the thought process. So what we're trying to do, working with the rendering team, is approach the materials within Studio as a core strong foundational library of these material types. The details of that we'll work out and share with you guys later. But the important thing is that this foundational system will be flexible and extensible. So as we start adding features and updating, the system will become more powerful, and developers will be able to inherit these properties a little bit more naturally. We're still working out the details for that as well. The idea also is that this will be cross products. Bless you. So it will work on avatars. It could potentially work on your environment, mesh parts, and everything else, so that they are all using this same common language. And I'll explain the reasoning behind that later. The other thing we want to be able to do is allow developers to still deviate from each other visually, have distinct looking games that aren't rooted in one particular style, but still use this extensible system to essentially benefit from the persistent updates to the core concept. These archetypes, well, we haven't really discussed exactly how that'll break out, but essentially it's a way to allow a developer to get a particular style of the game quickly and an avatar to have a similar style quickly and easily. Because we're unifying the proposals to unify the environment and the avatars through a very similar pipe, it creates a common language between the avatars and the developers' games. What that can allow us to do is have an avatar jump into one game and alter its rendering appearance to match the developer's game, allowing any avatar to feel like it belongs a little bit more in the developer's game. So you as a developer don't have to necessarily opt out of allowing an avatar in your game, but can do this in a way that allows the identity of the player to stay intact. Back to you.
Thank you. I'm going to explain a little bit of the work that we're doing to ensure that we don't mess up any of the existing games in Roblox as we make these changes and make them as easy as possible for you guys to embrace and to use. So our goals from a compatibility perspective we talk about backwards compatibility. I jokingly call it 360 compatibility because it's everything that exists now will work with everything in the future, and everything in the future will work with everything in the past, and in every direction. So basically, we're trying to make absolutely everything work. And that means when you get into specifics, it means things like clothes can work on top of existing avatars, and all of the existing accessories and body part swapping and all of that would work with the new avatars as well. So it's a little crazy, but that's where we're headed. We're also trying to roll this out incredibly incrementally, so in little baby steps. So the first things that we'll see, or that you'll see, and if you can't quote any dates, I guess, at RDC, but I mean, you can't hold us to them. But our goal is that by the end of the year, and if not the end of the year, very soon after, we will be able to release deformable meshes. We will be able to release new avatars, which are, we call them S15, which is, they're effectively still 15 parts, same part names, everything else, except they can now be skinned in piecewise or holistically, and they can be rendered using the new PBR shader pipeline that Stephen was describing. Even though they're still 15 parts and they're still completely drop-in compatible seamlessly from an API perspective with the existing avatars, they can look like the Lola that we showed before. Soon after that, we will hopefully be able to also release a tech preview of the new bone and skeleton support so that you guys can start to get familiar with it and think of cool ways to use it.
So one of the things we're talking about with incrementally improving is when we ship the skin meshes, we're going to start, as he said, initially with a 15 joint character, so it's very similar to the R15, but in this case skinned. But we don't want to stop there. We want to eventually get to where we're supporting more joints, because 15 joints on a regular character is just not enough articulation or enough to even emote properly, which is something that I'm sure a lot of people want to be able to do in their game. So this is S15, this is S97. There's some subtle changes here, but what we are adding are additional joints in the torso, hands are fully articulated, ball joints in the feet, roll and twist joints in the arms, and also a fully fleshed out facial rig. The details behind the facial rig we're still working out, but it will allow you to essentially emote and have facial animation.
But to reiterate, this is what we will have by the end of the year or early next year. So this is the 15 parts, fully skinned, with this quality of rendering.
Yeah, the S97 is more of the long view.
All right. so enough of that other stuff. I think I mentioned in every keynote. So as I've been with Roblox for a year, so I wasn't here when we first started saying we were going to do this. But my understanding is it was years ago. So we are now actually doing this. So it's been a very long time coming. But we know, and I said it at the beginning, and you guys know this thing, the magic of Roblox is all the things that the community creates, right? And with games, that is so very, very clear. And the avatars themselves have just been a spot where we haven't been able to do that before. So now you guys are familiar with the UGC or the Community Concept Contest that we held the end of last year. That wasn't an accident or random. That was specifically so that we could collect information, kind of look at the behaviors, kind of learn what the community might want out of UGC, and actually also get a read on sort of the community's skills, honestly, a little bit. So we held that contest. These were the winners from last fall's contest. I don't know if any of you are here, but congratulations if you are. These were the original drawings that were submitted, and this is what they turned into. So, and these are some of my favorite avatars on the platform, my favorite character bundles, and they are some of our most successful, meaning as far as the players, that engage with.
A lot of fun to make.
Yeah, these were awesome, and we learned a lot. We saw a lot of female characters. We saw a few darker characters that we don't tend to do. We also saw a lot of Asian-inspired characters in anime. So we learned a lot about what players were looking for. So we did it again. This time because we're as we're working through UGC, we loved it. So we run another one. I can't say exactly who the winners are yet. We're figuring that out now. But these were some of my favorites. Particularly, again, one of the things we keep seeing, and that's why I'm so excited about UGC, is this one in the lower left down here, is how creative the community is and how they use the tools that we have in ways that we really never thought of. My favorite thing about this one on the lower left is the head of your character is actually that thing inside the claw machine. So if you swapped your head would be in there with the teddy bears and stuff, and as it animates, it's twisting around all creepy-like. Yeah.
And the last contest we had the double-headed creature, and it was a unique challenge. We'd not really thought about it. We'd purposely avoided it. And this gave us an opportunity to say, what the hey, let's give this a shot and see what happens, and figure out a way to not just make it real, but use it in a meaningful manner.
Yeah, and just because I thought it was horrible, the description here of this clock dude, by Tired Wizard. Time to hand in my submission. I clocked in a lot of hours on this one. I'll be watching to see who wins. I'm going to be kind of ticked off if I lose. So, and if Tired Wizard is here, he needs to not talk to me. That's all.
No, talk to me. The
Yeah.
puns give me strength, please.
He's the pun guy. And again, and we'll get into the details of the actual program in a second. These just are so special to me. So in the new contest, not only were people entering concepts, but there was fan art for the concepts. So these were submitted, and these are just drawings. These are all, in each of these are submissions, re-rendered and tweeted out. These are just amazing. And this. Is it pandering? Yeah. Is it awesome? Kind of, yeah.
We might have to make this an internal development.
And yeah, we're probably going to make it. If Dave lets us, we're going to make it. But anyway, point of this whole thing is, we're going to let the community make avatar items, and we're going to let them sell them in the catalog. And the eventual goal is to get to where we make nothing, and absolutely everything end to end is made by the community. So it's going to take us a little while because we want to do this right. Everybody's familiar with the shirts and pants and kind of the cesspool / petri dish that is. We just need to make absolutely certain that doesn't happen to this. This is too important and it's too special. So that's the sole reason that we're going slowly and we're taking time. So everything is in flux, but right now these are the things that we're working through. So it will require some form of a verified creator, meaning that we want to know that you're not a bot, that you're a real person, that you're a decent actor. This is a concept that we don't know what the details are. It won't be ridiculously onerous, but it won't be just email. So this is something that we're also going to use in other areas. So things like in the toolbox or selling plugins or any of the other ththings, they would all dovetail into this same concept. Publishing items will most likely require a listing fee. This is another way to sort of prevent botting, to prevent people from just spamming the store. Item release, it won't be, again, assuming we end up with a listing fee, it won't be onerous. We're not saying it costs $20 to post a shirt. That's not the kind of thing we're talking about at all. It isn't an opportunity. It isn't a way to make money for Roblox. It's a way to make the catalog of a higher quality. There will be some item release throttling. Whether it won't be ridiculous, like one item per month, but it's not going to be 100 items per day. So there will be something to just say, to keep it sane. We are defining price floors right now we're looking at per item type, so we don't end up with 5.5 Robux Dominuses or whatever. So again, and early on we're doing a lot of experimentation and we're going to be measuring things and working with the creators to just understand what's working, what's not working. We want this to be a great experience. And we're working through the details of revenue sharing, and we're having some really, I think, creative discussions about how we motivate good behavior, demotivate bad behavior, how we motivate developers to help sell this content, and things like that. So, this is in Studio right now. It's actually in Studio. If you have Studio installed, which I assume you all do, it is actually already there. It's just turned off. So, and it's turned off unless you have the proper rights. But this is the publishing flow. It's not sexy at all. It's really just you can set a price, an item description, things like that, stuff you would expect. Put things on sale and take them back off sale. I'm like that. This is working. If you saw Twitter or if you were poking around, you might have seen a fresh red baseball cap show up last week.
Swag even? Maybe?
Yes, show up last week briefly and then disappear. That was the first asset or first item not owned by Roblox that was published onto the catalog, end to end, and it worked. So the reasons that we're going slowly. I'm really fascinated that this wasn't free. Somehow this was like, you gotta, so aesthetic quality, and again, we don't want to in any way dictate what people can make, or if people want to make ugly things, they should be able to intentionally. But what the issue here is we want to make sure that we're giving you guys the tools to be able to make something of a high quality, as opposed to it being just difficult to make something good. Functional quality, this is a bigger deal. This is a little bit of both. So we want to make sure you have the tools and the testing capabilities so that you can make things that are functional. But on the other side, we need to have pretty robust validation, possibly moderation, to make sure that people aren't intentionally or unintentionally putting broken items up there that people pay for, and then they're disappointed. Copying, everybody's familiar with that. So this problem is actually much harder with 3D objects than 2D objects. So we're working through it, and we're looking at a lot of different solutions. We'll be doing a lot of research around this, but we're not going to open it up wide until this can't happen. IP infringement, that's pretty standard. Highly copied IP infringement too, I guess. Moderation, we have moderation already, but we need to be, I'm not going to say what I was searching for, but
based on our algorithm, it could be an innocuous word.
That's true. This will use the existing moderation initially, and then we'll continue to augment it. Versioning, these are things that we generally don't have to care about as Roblox, but we do now as we open this up. So both for good and bad. If you release a UGC hat and it doesn't work, you need to be able to overwrite it and version it so that it does work. But on the flip side, if you released a hat and somebody bought it and then you later turn it into a dog, then we need to make sure that can't happen either. And then the one that's more for us than for anything else is that as this opens up, there will be millions and millions of things created, and we need to make sure that we have everything ready so that all of those things don't make it harder for us to move Roblox forward. So if we don't have the right forward-looking tech when we open this up, people can make thousands and thousands of new avatar bundles and characters, and then all of a sudden when we go to add clothing on them, we're like, oh, shoot, we did that wrong. And now there's millions of characters that either don't work or that have to be retrofitted. So we just need to make sure that we're ready and forward-looking with all of this. So this is our, again, everything's subject to change, but this is the current plan for rolling this out. So like I said, we proved the pipelines internally, so we know that they work. We're working with a group of, I call them canaries. They're a very small group of 13 whitelisted creators right now that are essentially helping us test this process. So that's where the first content will come from. I realized after I told them they were canaries that canaries die when they're in coal mines. But
also, 13 is not necessarily a good number for that.
Exactly. So we have 13 people who may
it's
or may not
negatives.
make it out alive. But the end the next step, which again, if everything goes right, will be Thursday. So less than a week from now, those initial creators will start releasing hats. So we're starting with a single type, and it's hats. Assuming that goes well, immediately after that, so over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, we'll just start enabling other types of content. So waist, so to say, tails, wings, everything. The one thing that we're going to hold back for a while are character bundles, or a couple of things: character bundles, animations, and faces. We need to do more work before we can turn those on, or before we can open it up to those. And then by the end of the year, again, this makes it. I know it could be frustrating, but we're going to expand it to hopefully up around 50 creators so that we can start to stress things, but we won't have everything related to moderation in place yet, so we still have to keep it basically people who we know personally that we've seen and met almost. So
we can yell at them.
Yes, and we know where they live, names of their pets, things like that. And then throughout next year, we're just going to continue opening this up and opening it up. So character bundles, so people can make full avatars. Arbitrary bundles, which is something we don't have support for ourselves yet. So you want to make a bundle of hats or a bundle of hairs or whatnot. That's absolutely something that even in this initial creator group, they immediately asked for that. we hope to really shortly after that get to curated storefronts, so proper storefronts. If you are a creator, you can control the layout, control exactly what you're featuring or whatever, notify people, so on, but make that a first-class citizen on the platform. Complete moderation overhaul to deal with all of the issues we talked about or was mentioned earlier, and then eventually, hopefully next year, if we can get all of this together, open it up to the community at large to verified creators. And in that case, it would be anybody could apply to be a verified creator. It wouldn't be people we're choosing. And then lastly, I'm not talking about kind of some of the player-facing features that are coming out. I'm sure people have heard that emotes are coming because we've turned them on and then turned them right back off a couple times. Sorry about that. But the goal is to eventually get to where those can also be made by the community. Moderation is still a concern, but where those can be made by the community and we open it all up, there should be nothing that only we make. All right, so to sum up, so here's what we're doing. So much higher quality avatars, animation, rendering, behavior, everything. New clothing-based avatars.
The Hulk.
Yeah, I just want these guys all in the same car. Flexible, customizable, componentized humanoid, 360-degree compatibility, UGC everywhere for everyone. Thanks.
Well done.
Oh,